Before I continue on with this third and final head turn tutorial, I want to go over one last thing about actions that I forgot to cover in part 1. And let's see, the first thing I'm going to do is create a smiley face again. I change the color to green for the face, and I'm doing it on a vector layer. And on the same vector layer, I'm going to create the eyes and the mouth instead of drawing them on separate vector layers like I did the first time around in part 1. Okay, and I'm doing that because I know that some of us like to create our characters all on one vector layer, which it's not really my personal preference, but it is easier to manipulate your character if all your shapes are on one layer. And actions can still be very useful in a situation like that. So therefore, I'm creating all of my shapes on one vector layer, and now that I'm on frame 0 when I did that. So now I'm going to create my group folder, which is really just a layer where I apply all of my actions. And I'm going to call this vector layer I'm going to call it Mr. Square. And in order for those actions to work, you have to make the vector layers a sublayer of that actions group folder. So I'm dragging the Mr. Square vector layer underneath the actions group folder. And now I'm ready to create a couple of actions. I'm going to click on the actions group folder, move my cursor to frame 1 because you can't apply or create actions on frame 0. So we're moving it to frame 1 because our goal is to create a single action keyframe. Now I'm going to open the actions window, and I'll create my first action. I'll call this upper lips. There we go. I hit enter, and as you can see, we made the transition from the main line to the action timeline. And you can tell because the background of the timeline changed from white to sky blue. So now it's safe to move from our actions group folder and click on the Mr. Square vector layer, like so. And I call this upper lips because I only want to manipulate these top 2 points of the mouth. As it is right now, the mouth is made of 4 vector points. There's 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom to make this square mouth. But I want my action to only affect the top 2 points. So make sure that you're not clicking on any other points here by accident when you have the Select Points tool, when you have the Move Points tool selected. Only manipulate these top 2 points in this case. So I'm moving the left corner of the mouth up there, and I'm moving the right corner of the mouth over here so that it resembles a kind of smile. And when I apply this action on the main line, it'll only affect the action will only affect those 2 points on the main line. Alright, so let's go back to the main line. And as you can see, he's not smiling anymore. He's had a rough day. But he's also ready for his second action. And this time, I'm going to call it bottom lips. And I created that action on my actions group folder, and as you can see, the main line switched from white to sky blue again, which tells us that we're now in our action layer, and I can safely click on the Mr. Square vector layer, which I'm going to do right now. And instead of moving the top 2 points this time, I'm just going to move the bottom 2 points of the mouth. Hence, that's why I've called the action bottom lips. So make sure you're clicking on your Move Points tool, and I'm going to select the lower left corner, move it a little bit in like this, and then I'm going to select the lower right corner and move it a little bit in, and it sort of looks like he's smiling now. And that's it for the bottom lips action. So I'm going to double click on the main line here in the actions window so that I can get back to my main line. And as you can see, the timeline turned to this off-whitish color. That lets us know we're back in the main line. And you can see all the changes that we made in the actions have disappeared. They haven't affected the mainline model. But that's going to change very quickly. So on frame 1 of the main line, since I have my Mr. Square vector layer already selected, I'm going to make a keyframe for the point motion channel on frame 1. And then I'm going to move on to frame 30. And before I apply my actions, I have to make sure that I have the actions group folder selected. And now I do. And I'm going to apply the upper lips action. Now I'm in the actions window, and I'm going to click on Insert Reference for the upper lips action. And there you go. The upper lips are now in position exactly where I placed them in the action. But the cool thing is now that I can also click on the bottom lips action and insert a reference on top of the upper lips action. And voila, I've moved the bottom 2 points. So I've applied 2 actions in the same place to control different parts of the model. And this is useful because you can mix and match your actions. Like, say you want this right eyeball to blink. You can create an action for a right eye blink. You can create a separate action for a left eye blink. And you can mix and match those actions so that only one eye is blinking, or both eyes are blinking, or maybe just the left eye is blinking, or maybe just the right eye is blinking. If you separate out your actions like that, you can have that kind of control. And again, all of these shapes were created on the same vector layer instead of separate vector layers. So if your tendency is to really create all of your shapes on one layer when you're building a model, you can still use actions. But I prefer building my model out of multiple layers because it's easier to go back in and edit later on, and you can also control depth using the depth sorting feature. And here, you know what? I'm going to turn the depth sorting feature on right now. Make sure I have my actions group layer selected. Click on depth sort in the options menu, and sort layers by depth is checkmarked, and sort by true distance is checkmarked. In this case, it's kind of pointless because all of our shapes are on one layer. But that's one reason why I like to separate out all of my layers, because I can take advantage of the depth sorting feature, and I can also switch off individual layers. Like if I wanted to replace the eyeballs, it's as easy as just clicking off the eyeballs and drawing another eye layer. When you have all your shapes on one layer, I feel like it's a little harder to do editing later on when you want to go back into your project. And I also feel like you really can't do depth sorting when all of your shapes are on one layer either. Okay, so I think this pretty much covers the last thing that I wanted to talk about with actions. So now we're ready to move ahead with our head tube tutorial, the final part 3 of how to make a head turn with actions.